Welcome back to the Radio Horror Show and the Radio Horror YouTube channels. Tonight we are talking about the original 1922 Nosferatu and the 2023 Nosferatu. This is listed as 2023 because it did debut in 23, and both films are basically the same film except for one is a talkie and one is a silent film. And joining me to talk a little bit about the 22 original Nosferatu as part of my multi-part Nosferatu series and the recently released kickstarted barely in it Doug Jones film, FYI. We have Kavin A Ranson. Please introduce yourself to the audience and who you are, Kevin.
My name is Kavin A Ranson, as you mentioned before. I do writing with thinkingskull.com. I also do film critique with moviecrypt.com. So, and I have a vampire series called The Matriarch. There's 3 books in it so far, so I know a little bit about this, and I've seen all these films.
What's the website that you work for again?
thinkingskull.com is my author website, and the film critique website where I review films such as this year's 2024 Nosferatu is moviecrypt.com.
Cool. What are some of the articles you write for the website?
Anything to do with movies. Basically, it's my website, so I have full control over it, so I am webmaster as well as ghostwriter.
Excellent.
But it is hosted by the Grim Reaper.
The Grim Reaper?
Yeah.
Is that you in a costume?
It is me in a costume.
Okay.
But that's just what we tell people.
Gotcha. We're going to talk about the 1922 film. If you want to know more about the 1922 film, this is going to be a little of a brief overlay and Kevin's thoughts and opinions on it. Go check out my interview with the composer Brett from the Boston Pops, who did a composition musical or an organ for the film back in October. We had him on the show, and that interview is now up on my YouTube channel. But Kevin is on here to talk about his thoughts and opinions about the 1922 original, and then this Kickstarter film, which was started in 2016, finally came out last year on Apple iTunes and for rent on other streaming services. However, after watching it, it is the most boring film I have ever seen of an adaptation of Nosferatu. But I digress. Kevin, how were you exposed to Nosferatu, and what are your thoughts and opinions on the original Max Schreck version?
Well, to be honest, I was familiar with the original version, but where it really came onto my radar, where I started looking back at it seriously, was Shadow of the Vampire, where Defoe is playing the vampire in question, but the film is also not actually a parody, but kind of a tongue-in-cheek take, kind of, I don't know, I guess it steeps into comedy horror, but it's meant to seem dramatic, but it's too funny not to take it any other way. But where they're actually with the filming of it rather than just remake the original, so you're getting both sides of the camera. But in that version, Defoe is playing an actual vampire, which only the director and a handful of other people even know.
Right, and Myrna was played by John Malkovich, and we also have, as the photographer, Carrie Elways.
Mm-hmm.
And that version, unfortunately, is kind of lost to time right now. It is not on any HD, Blu-ray, 4K streaming I don't know about streaming, but the DVDs are completely out of print. I don't think it's on streaming. What
I wasn't able to find it.
Okay, so it's not on streaming either. Yeah, so it's
yeah.
not on streaming either. I don't understand why. I don't understand what the rights are with the film, as in public domain. A film based on a public domain film shouldn't be this hard to find. It's also produced by Nicolas Cage, so it's his production company. It might be because of the disc release. I don't know. It's shocking that like Synapse or Scream Factory or Arrow or any of those companies that put out these like cult favorite films and are honestly the driving force behind physical media now these days, with the exception of Disney, they still put out a lot of product on physical media too, just FYI.
Yeah, with the Disney Vault, which means it's only available for a limited time only.
That's not true at all, because everything's on streaming. So
everything's
on Disney Plus, but
not all of it. Yeah, they keep
the things that people really
away.
Want to see and the IP that they really want to market.
I will accept that.
Going on there, the original movie, I don't remember when exactly I saw it. I saw clips of it probably in things like Ernest Scared Stupid, but I do remember seeing it as an adult, never as a child. I'd only ever seen like images from it. It was definitely long before SpongeBob SquarePants did a parody of it, or at least having the character show up in it. But I think it was that silhouette of him climbing up the stairs in the opening sequence to Ernest Scared Stupid that made me look into what that film was, but still not till many years later, because Ernest Scared Stupid came out like in the early 90s, where I would have to go to a video store and find a copy of Nosferatu on VHS, which I still didn't do until probably DVDs were around. And then I found it was on the early days of YouTube because it's public domain. And then I began the history, looking into more about it. I understood what silent films were, and I actually attempted to make a documentary web series in 2008 to no success. Not as much success as, let's say, Felicia Day had with her film series on YouTube, which launched her entire career, about trying to find, like, a girl in a film school trying to find a lost copy of London After Midnight, which Nosferatu almost became that type of film because the stupidity of Stoker's widow tried to have the film destroyed. If she had been smart enough or had the better lawyer to make sense of, like, you can own this and you could make money on this, don't sue it to be destroyed, the Stoker family would be better off today with the property of Dracula and Nosferatu.
I wouldn't disagree. But we don't really know what was in her head at that time. And
no,
of course,
we don't. But
she won.
But she did. She definitely got it. She definitely got her way in the battle.
And I think it wasn't there was a copy in the U.S. Copyright Office, which is the surviving copy that all the current copies are from. And if it hadn't been sent over to the U.S., if I'm not mistaken, there would have been no surviving copies.
Correct. There's a great podcast called Now Playing Podcast, and they've gone over every Nosferatu film, including Shadow of the Vampire. And okay. I don't think they did Vampire in Venice. I think they talk about it briefly with the Vampire, with Nosferatu, which is covered in my last episode with an author named Brian. But I digress. This film is easily obtainable, and there are multiple different scores for it too, because of the original score is beautiful and it's hypnotic, and it is, you're right, there are sometimes some comedic moments in there, such as Orlok picking up his coffin and walking around with it. Mm-hmm. But there's like several bands. I think Typo Negative was one of the bands. I'm not 100% certain did a score for this movie.
I'm not familiar with that one.
I'd
like to hear
it on their online or on DVD. I don't think it's on YouTube. I think they've had, because it's their music with like public domain film, they don't like it to be on YouTube, which makes sense.
Too bad.
The version that came out last year, the Doug's film, mm-hmm. I watched it and I was bored to tears. Like, Doug is barely in that movie, and that movie is all about like Hutton trying to just get money more than anything else in that film.
Yeah, well, it's not inaccurate. The 2024 version kind of stepped into that too, but of course they explored a lot more of the dread, the photography. Eggers did a lot more stuff, but let's specific. Doug Jones and Eddie Allen seem to be eating the scenery. They are wallowing in their parts. Doug's not in it that much. Eddie's not in it that much. And unfortunately, the guy playing Thomas Hutter is quite boring. I don't know what he was going for, but it's just, it's like, stand here, say this line. And there doesn't seem to be any nuance. And since he's in almost every scene, his presence definitely seems to drag the scene down. I don't know if that was intentional. I mean, is this what they're going for? I have to point the finger at the director a little bit, going, you shot this. You could have had him do another take, like, for every scene. What's going on here? I'd love to have that conversation.
What did you think of the score of the film and the look of the vampire?
I didn't hate the look of the vampire. I thought that was one of the better effects in the entire thing. What was distracting for me in the entire film was some of the computer-generated backgrounds, a lot of the CGI work. Some of them looked so good and so realistic, like photorealistic, and then the blue screen characters paled in comparison. The one I keep thinking of is the one where Hutter arrives in Transylvania by train, and the train is this gorgeous, in this moonlight and silver tone. And I'll talk about that here in a minute. And then he's standing in front of it looking like a bad blur. And it's like it should be flipped. I mean, he should be the primary thing in that shot, and the train should be somewhat blurred behind him. But I guess whoever did, there's quite a few names in the credits for who did the special effects work. They were very proud of that, but in too many cases, it just detracted from what we were supposed to be paying attention to. Although, again, Hutter wasn't really, playing a character who was much to keep our attention. I also noticed something else, and it bothered me at first until I realized they were being consistent. All of the daytime scenes kind of use a kind of an amber. Amber is not the right word. What am I thinking of? Kind of a sepia tone
Hmm.
as far as it's monochromatic. And then all of the scenes at night use kind of a silver monochrome background. So you know if it's daytime or nighttime, even though, and I mean, go back and look at the original movie. All of it was shot in the daylight, and then they dimmed the scenes that were supposed to be at night. Well, but for this, they were a little more selective and back and forth. But then they also were doing this thing. It's like, hey, blood, and now the blood's actually red, and I'm like, it didn't work for me, that part.
Gotcha. What do you what did you think of at least Doug's portrayal versus Shrek's and like his makeup?
Again, I didn't hate it. I think Shrek's makeup definitely looks more alien. Doug's makeup was good. Like I said, it was one of the highlights of the version they were trying to do. And I think he looked very good in it. He did not look like Doug Jones, except right in the eyes, and that's if you really, really, really pay attention. But he had a little more eyebrow, a little more hair in the tuft, and I guess it kind of stood out a little more, so it didn't feel quite as, I don't know what the word for it is. It called a little extra attention to itself, but not like a handlebar mustache.
I think it was just a matter of like we'd seen this before and done better. I didn't hate everything about it, but honestly, it was just kind of a disappointment after so many years of this being delayed.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? It took a really long time for the director to make this, and supposedly he's doing another one soon. And it's like, wow, how long is that going to take?
another what? What movie?
I don't know. Another silent film where he inserts
Oh,
the actors.
I gotcha.
Yeah, so we'll have to wait and see. With regards to the original movie, I just saw it the day before Halloween last year,
Hmm.
and I was generally surprised because I had not seen it actually on a big screen before. I'd
Hmm.
only ever watched it on the small screen, and watching it with the orchestra, the organ, sorry, not an orchestra, an organ being done by one person who's 22 years old. I thought that was incredible.
That'd be cool. I like
Yeah.
it.
So, and it was at the Boston Opera House, which was Boston. Sorry, not the Boston Opera House. The Boston building in Boston where the Boston Pops actually play. So I don't remember the name of the building, but it was a lot of fun. And the like I said, you can listen to my interview with the organist on my show. He's also done the Cabinet of Dr. Caligari as well.
Oh, okay.
And there's recently a brand new restoration of that film has been released. I think Kino Loader Studios has the best version of Nosferatu if you want a disc version of it. Otherwise, again, it does stream online.
Yeah. Oh well, I've got some set I found a while back. It's like 50 black and white greats, and it's
Yeah,
part of that. It's got all the old, and that's where I saw the first full copy of the original Nosferatu.
gotcha.
Interest. Yeah. Well, I was doing a little bit of exploration because I like to watch it first, and then I like to go back and do my research as if I didn't know any of that stuff. And I think it was the Grim Life Collective actually went to the town where Murnau filmed everything, and they had a German punk film nut over there who was helping them out with that, and they went around to all the locations, most of which were all in the same little town, which of course is where he was staying at that time.
Cool.
And they also pointed out what places they weren't allowed to film. But it was interesting that in the 22, the Doug Jones version, they paid all this attention to like making the train look really good. But then they showed the butcher house, and it looked like somebody had cut it out of cardboard, or like had taken like a painting and done it into. It's like, why does that look so terrible? And these other things, it's like they assign different teams to do different things, and some of them understood the assignment, and the other ones went, "Well, we can't really make it look right, so let's just do this." It's like it detracted.
Gotcha. Well, Kevin, thank you for joining me for this. Where can people find you again?
MovieCrypt.com is my movie review site. ThinkingSkull.com is all my writing work.
Awesome. Well, I will be back with one final review of Nosferatu coming up here on the Radio Horror YouTube channel and the Radio Horror Show. Thank you very much for joining me, Kevin.
And thank you for having me.